Hi, I'm going to be talking about how to make information systems that users find trustworthy, that they can trust. And when I think of information systems, I'm thinking of websites mainly. That's what I think of first. I think of e-commerce sites. I work on those. I think of search engines. I think of social networks. And I think there's like basically three key things that a site needs, or if an application needs a user interface. First of all, it needs to be responsive, and that means that it fits to the screen, especially today with all the different devices and how the mobile platform has pretty much dominated all the different platforms, even over desktop now these days. So for responsiveness, then I would say navigation, because when a person is using your application, they want to be able to find what they're looking for. So are the buttons taking them to the places that they want to visit, or giving them the functions that they are expecting? And that's another part of it, is it meeting the expectations of what a user is going to the site for, what they expect to see from a site or from the application. And that's where the responsiveness and navigation, so that they get the information that they're looking for, comes into play. And then the third piece that is a part of it is performance, in the sense of internet web performance of the site loading, of the information appearing, and the time that it takes to get that information there. That impacts a lot of what the user feels about that site or the application. If they have to wait for longer than they expect to wait, they lose confidence that that information is going to be showing up. So just right off the bat, the three things are responsive design, navigation, and web performance, site performance. So, and then the fourth element that I'm going to focus just a little bit on is, of course, how you use that information. Do they have an option of how their information that they share is going to be used? Or if it's e-commerce, do you have security in place to secure that the information that they give about their credit or about their bank information is going to be safe and secure? So I'm going to go a little bit into responsiveness, and then touch a little bit about navigation, and then just talk briefly about web performance and what that means, and then wrap things up. So responsiveness. So basically, responsive sites are grid typically, and then they collapse as the device is smaller and smaller. Then the grid will collapse on itself, and then you want the more important information to collapse to the top. So even though on your site you might have a header here, that doesn't necessarily mean that it necessarily is going to be on the top when you get to something that's the size of a mobile device. You might have that at the bottom. So it just depends on what is the most relevant. So we're also seeing that for developing sites, mobile first is dominant. A few years ago, it was questionable. Now it's just a given. This past season for Christmas, it was dominated by mobile sales. So sites that were mobile friendly did better in e-commerce, noticeably. One thing I wanted to say about that is it also is a little bit about navigation, but mobile is in such popular that they're even considering moving the buttons that for the menu, instead of having the little hamburger at the top that's popular right now, is maybe even having the buttons at the bottom where your thumbs are. So they're developing with mobile in mind, and even changing the format of what is expected, because it will work if it works for users. Then you can, that's the exception where you can change it, where if it makes the user experience more effective or easier, then you can change what expectations. But you do want to be careful because you don't want a site that is too strange, because then that will lose user trust. So you want to have a responsive site so that when a user goes to the site, the items fit the screen, the images are resizable, the text is visible, and then that takes you to navigation, and that's the second part. Navigation is extremely important in a site or an application. If people go to your site and they want to find, you know, white denim jeans with holes in them, they need to be able to find them quite easily without too many clicks. So you want to be able to have it, menu maybe with that slides open and you see denim. Boom, they choose denim, and then maybe from there you have just the different styles. A lot of times in denim or in pants, you go by the whether it's wide bottom or slender. And so you want to be able to know what terms people are using to search, and some sites have that information. You can see what the popular search terms are. Use those for the navigation buttons, or if you're building an application for users to use, what are the terms that they use when they're looking for the information, and try and use those terms, because that will make it simple, and that will make it effective. It will make keeping it simple also builds user trust, because it builds into that, giving people what they expect. It's just trying to figure out, what is this being used for? How is the user going to use it? And what are they expecting? And the better their experience on your site or on your application with that information, then the more their confidence they're going to have in your site, the more they're going to come back to it, and the more they're going to use it and not look for an alternative from your application. Also, I want to touch on site performance, and it has to do with site speed. So, typically a user expects a page to come up within 3 seconds. Okay, not all pages do, or all applications do, but typically they do. Typically that's what the user expects. What Facebook does, if you notice, when you click on Facebook, because it has so much information to load, there's no way that page is going to load in 3 seconds. But what they do is they have a little like CSS sheet, which is the style information. It's a ghost one, so it's not the real one that's going to eventually load, but one that loads first. And that way you have the shadow of the box and some of the information there. And then that gives the user the knowledge that, okay, the information is being loaded, it is going to come. And it relaxes them, because if there's nothing showing up and it's just spinning, the person has a little bit of anxiety. You can think of it your own experience when you're waiting for something, you don't know if it's going to be there or not. You have an anxiety like, okay, is it going to take my information? Should I back out? Should I go to a different site? So it really makes a difference if you how your site loads. Also, if you have jQuery, load that last if you can. It takes some time for those files to populate. So whatever you can load later, load that later. Only keep the what you need first to load on the top of the code, if you will. So another way is to speed up your site is caching. So basically your web pages, I'm thinking of web pages, for your information, you can keep it in a static page. Because when you're pulling all that data from the site or from your database, that's a lot of work that your site's doing. So if you can take that information and build that page and cache it, keep it like that for a certain amount of time, depending on what your page requires, your information requires, that saves the server time for use on the server, if you will, because the page is already there. So when someone requests it, it just goes, boom, here it is, take it. Whereas if it's not cached, it has to build all that from that database and build all the information and put it together and then send it out. So caching is big. If you have images, if you have jQuery, you can use CDN, content delivery networks. And what that is it's just servers out there, especially if your site or application is serving other countries in that or different geography areas. They'll have servers in those areas that will send that information out and hold it for you and send it out to them, which makes it incredibly quicker and takes less off your server that you're sending your information from your site information. So it takes a load off. So that increases performance by quite a bit. Also, I don't know if I mentioned this, image size. You always want to try and compress your images. That makes a big difference. And so those three things are very, very crucial for user experience and creating an experience that the users expect, and that will help build trust. So the three things that I focused on during this time is responsive design, ease of navigation, and site performance, so fast loading pages. And the fourth element is always a concern, is security and how you're using the information that the site user or user is giving. You want to, if they have control over what is done with that information, that's better. If any comments, you want to have the SSL, so security, know that the information is not going to be in the wrong hands, taken from or given to the wrong hands, or opportunity to become in the wrong hands. So just to give them a knowledge that you're going to secure their information. You're not going to be handing it out to anyone. And that's about it. You have those elements, and people will come back to your site. They'll use your application, and they'll request more work from you. All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.